Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more relationship stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Let's crack on with today's first story, which comes from ProperPie8256 from the True Off My Chest subreddit, titled, My Daughter Lied on My Wife. I, 36 male, made the mistake of marrying the woman I got pregnant at 19 years old. We divorced when my daughter Kay was 6 months old. This relationship with my daughter and ex-wife has always been strained. I take most of the blame because I was a 19-year-old shithead, just winging it through life with no purpose or sense of direction. To my ex's credit, she quickly got herself together and got an education while handling most of the parenting. I know I fucked up in my daughter's younger years, and that's nobody's fault but mine. Apparently, nothing I do or say now will make up for it. Now she's 17, she's beautiful, smart, witty, well-mannered young woman, and it's 95% because of my ex's parenting. I love to brag about my daughter, but I would never take credit for how she turned out, as our relationship is incredibly strained. My ex is essentially forcing my daughter to spend every other weekend with me. My wife 30 female and her little sister 3 female. My wife and I don't mind at all. My wife was so happy with this arrangement that she got her parents to take our 3-year-old on Saturdays, so my oldest daughter doesn't feel like a whole weekend is lost to a toddler. She stays with us Thursday till Sunday. This particular weekend, her parents went to a wedding, so toddler stayed home. My 16-year-old was visibly upset by this, so my wife took toddler out for the day to keep the peace. That wasn't good enough for oldest because my wife would usually take Kay out for brunch, and since toddler was out with my wife, Kay and I went to lunch where she complained the entire time about how a whole weekend is ruined and she wanted to go home. My response was that life is inconvenient sometimes. Later that night, Kay's vindictive side comes out and she told my ex that my wife hit her. My ex showed up to my house and called the cops and was screaming on my lawn that she was going to press charges and assault my wife. The cops showed up and everyone is confused and crying. My daughter is begging to go home. The thing is, toddler wasn't feeling well, so my wife slept in toddler's room since about 7:30. Baby monitor proves it. She didn't even leave the bathroom. We show the cops this after my ex leaves with Kay. I apologized and the cop, who was super understanding, said that he would spook Kay and my ex a little for wasting time. I don't know what he said to them, but Kay called back and was apologizing. I wanted to speak to my wife to apologize, but my wife was not having any of it. Won't speak to Kay, and I don't blame her. X is calling my wife immature for not speaking to a teenager who's trying to apologize. My wife has emotionally closed herself to Kay. She also stopped contributing to Kay's college fund. This hurt Kay the most, as my wife makes pretty good money. Her chances of attending her dream school were much better with 3 parents saving for it instead of 2. This incident was 2 months ago, and Kay's attitude towards my wife has gone from fuck off to love bombing. My wife just doesn't want to be involved at all anymore and is offering to have Kay visit weekends again, but her and toddler will stay at her parents until Kay leaves. My ex is blaming my wife for not forgiving Kay for lying. My family is divided, saying Kay made a stupid teenager mistake and shouldn't be punished losing out on education. I won't make my wife interact with my daughter, but I'm not going to contribute double to her college fund, which is what my ex is demanding. My wife, my ex, and I were contributing equal parts, and my ex's new husband contributed nothing. I feel like my wife is being treated unfairly, but siding with my wife is making my relationship with my daughter worse. It's got much longer than I expected. I really need some object insight here because I have no clue how to fix or manage this. Guys, this blew up way more than I expected. I can't possibly respond to every comment, so I'll address some of the repeated stuff. I'm fully supportive of my removing herself. I wouldn't dream of forcing her to be around someone who accused her of abuse. She is volunteering to spend weekends at her parents. I'm not asking her to leave her home. Kay and toddler have a great relationship. They enjoy each other. My wife's parents take toddler on Saturday as a favor to us, but they were more than willing to do this as they love spending time with her. For those saying I'm not involved enough in making sure my daughter faces consequences, she does not live with me. If I try to get involved with how her mother is disciplining her at home, I will promptly be told to go fuck myself. I'm currently trying to have an adult conversation with my ex about how serious this could have gotten, and that I won't let this be swept under that rug. Every time I bring it up, I'm blocked for 3 days. I haven't given up though. Wow, And that whole situation could have went absolutely horribly. That's terrifying. What could have happened if it wasn't for that baby monitor? And would daughter have continued going down the path if, law enforcement did take her away, there wasn't the baby monitor? Would she eventually have backed down or not? I can't see it happening. And I can't blame the wife in this situation for not wanting to be around her, because if there's someone's willing to do that, you kind of need to back yourself up in that situation and protect yourself in ways, don't you? Obviously, there's a lot of background info in this particular story with what OP was talking about at the beginning, about not being part of her life and all this kind of thing. But I couldn't imagine myself at 17 or 16 or even 15 doing something like that, accusing someone of hitting me, because I would know the consequences of that. But Binaural Beat says, daughter is learning the lesson of not biting the hand that feeds you. I'd remain firm and honor your wife's wishes about not being around when your daughter is. What your daughter did is not just teenage drama. It could have resulted in Child Protective becoming involved and your baby being removed from your care. What she did is some serious shit, and I would not hesitate to allow the consequences to flow. Sounds like money is what is driving this offer to reconcile. Sometimes sorry isn't good enough, and daughter needs to learn that. X is looking out for her own financial interests. The more you and wife chuck in, the less she has to. Livin says, wife's in the right here. She has a duty to protect herself and her daughter, and your elder daughter put them in a lot of danger that I'm not sure you fully understand. The justice system is dangerous, brutal, and an imprecise instrument. There's a version of this where your wife couldn't positively prove that she was in the room with her daughter and was arrested and subject to child services and police investigation, possibly harming her access to her own child, or even facing jail time or a criminal and child abuse record. There are a few parents on earth that will not be terrified at that prospect, to say nothing of enraged. This is not something that can be fixed with an "I'm sorry." Your wife is rightfully angry and scared of your daughter, who showed she was willing to call armed men to your home to carry your wife away, lock her up, and potentially take her child away. Your ex-wife doesn't sound like she's mentally equipped to understand this. Your daughter definitely is not mentally equipped to understand this. If they were, they wouldn't be pushing for this maximum reconciliation and bygones be bygones approach. But you better get mentally equipped to understand this really friggin' fast, or you'll find yourself with two ex-wives. I'm sure you're a great dude, but given the choice between you and the safety and peace of mind of a relationship with a 3-year-old, you only get one guess as to who wins if those things come into conflict. Let me be clear, you cannot have the role of neutral mediator in this fight, because you cannot be neutral. There may be a reconciliation in the future. You won't be the one to facilitate or push for it. You need to reassure your wife that her and your young child's safety is your first concern, and that you'll have her back. Then you need to follow through. This doesn't mean you need to abandon your daughter. You do need to explain to your daughter that for the foreseeable future, she's burned that bridge with your wife. Period. You love her, you'll help her, you won't let her threaten the rest of your family. You can see her out in the world on your own, if that's something she wants. Picnics with the very finest homemade sandwiches and movies at a theatre are always an option, and you should try to be a part of your daughter's life. How she responds to this will tell you how much she genuinely wants that. Maybe she can come over once or twice a month, but my brother, you better sit down with your wife and make sure she understands that she has no strings, no resentment veto over that idea. She has a right to feel safe in her own home. And for flying fuck's sake, tell your wife that she wants a step-parent to contribute to the college fund. She's got one at home. Be very explicit about it and make sure your wife knows how explicit you've been. That's the easiest win for you in this mess. Ask All the Questions says Kay fucked around and found out, didn't she? I don't blame your wife. If there wouldn't have been a baby monitor to prove she was in the toddler's room the whole time, she could have had child abuse charges brought up against her. Your daughter's spoiled game could have ruined your wife's life. I'm being honest, I wouldn't allow the girl over again. I'd have you see her outside of the home. She needs help. Own Owl says that's a huge accusation she made. If your wife wasn't sleeping with your sick toddler since 7:30 with evidence that she didn't leave the room, your wife would have been in jail. I'm siding with your wife on this one. I'm glad she knows her self-worth to not contribute or have anything to do with your daughter. You need to talk to your daughter and X. X is definitely enabling her behavior. So no, your ex did not do that great a job of raising your entitled brat kid. Your ex's husband can contribute money to your daughter's college fund. 17 is old enough, and an accusation is not simply a small mistake. Screw that. OP then updates the post and says, "Hi all, I'm here to give an update because I've got many messages from concerned folks and I'm really touched. First off, thank you all. I didn't expect that response and all the great advice I got. I also let my wife read the post. She feels grateful and validated because this situation was making her question her sanity. Another thing I wanted to address is that some nasty things said about my daughter. Not cool. I don't know how many of you actually have kids with your suggestions. This is a shit situation and was really out of character for her. But I love my daughter and will always support her. It does not mean I can't acknowledge when she's acting like an arsehole. I got some very nasty messages and had to block several people because they decided to go full-blown internet troll. After some long conversations with my wife, she said she'd be willing to have contact with Kay again and possibly the college fund. I said no to the college fund. I prefer my wife not to contribute to Kay's education. Over the past 5 years, my wife has contributed about $14,000 to Kay's college fund, and I was ready to transfer all that money back to her. She declined and is content, just not contributing anything else. I finally got Kay and ex-wife to agree to a serious talk after threatening to pull that $14,000 out of the account. I finally got some truth out of Kay. She has a boyfriend. Ex-wife knew and didn't tell me. The weekends at my house were meant to keep her away from the boyfriend and friends. That particular weekend, there was a party that Kay wanted to go, and ex shut it down completely. Ex-wife told Kay not to tell me or the wife because we would cut her off, which is completely false. Ex-wife had to admit that's why she did it in front of Kay, and she was beyond angry. Then when it came time to address Kay using her stepmother in a lie that could have potentially landed her in prison, she started to cry. I believe she genuinely feels regret about her actions. She said she just wanted to go to the party with her friends, and since she couldn't, she said whatever she could to get her mother to react because she didn't think I would allow her to go. Apparently when Kay is home, my ex keeps inside and she can't see her friends on weekends or after school because ex-wife thinks she should be inside. Ex got frustrated and stormed off and didn't want to continue the conversation. I had no idea my daughter was so isolated at her mother's house, and her mother manipulated her into thinking that my wife and I are the manipulative ones. She feels much regret about what she said about my wife and understands why she wants to keep a distance. My wife loves Kay and wants to slowly start building a relationship with her again. However, that still leaves the issue of what is happening to my daughter at home. She has explicitly said she is not being verbally, physically, or sexually abused. She is just isolated and not permitted to do much. I think this is because when X was Kay's age, she was out of control with her partying. I knew her then and she was wild. I told Kay she has a place at my house, but she wants to stay at home. It is close to her school and friends. She just wants her mum to ease up some. They're working on it. Bex knows that we are onto her BS and has been playing nice, and we will see how long that lasts. I reiterated to Kay that this one particular situation with her lying could have ruined many lives and has greatly impacted her own life because her dream school is out of the question. Any conversation my ex tries to start about college money, I tell her we can talk about it after her or her husband deposits $14,000 into the account. She hasn't brought it up again. Until then, we'll keep making the same contributions. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And let's move on to another story. And I saw this next post and I thought, oh, is this a cheeky bit of neighbor drama from Ghost200121 from the Am I the A-hole subreddit? Does come with an update as well, titled Am I the A-hole for screwing my fence panels in so they can't be lifted? I have lived in my house for almost 3 years. I live on a corner house next to the road. A back road. A lot of the kids on the neighborhood play ball games in that area. This doesn't bother me much apart from when they kick it against my fence. One thing that does bug me is how often they would come to my door because the ball had gone over into the garden. I know this seems like such a small thing, but I'm talking like 5 to 6 times a day. I used to work from home, so I just go get the ball and ask them to be more careful. However, I recently changed jobs and now work out of the house. My partner is still home through the day, but is hard of hearing and never hears the kids when they knock. She actually uses more sign language than anything, or reads lips, as she really can't hear well at all without her hearing aid, which she only really wears when she's leaving the house. Anyway, since I haven't been home to answer the door, I found out the kids have actually been lifting my fence panel and coming into my garden to get their balls. I hate this. It makes me feel like my space and privacy is violated. I also have 4 dogs who are usually outside when the weather is nice. I have cameras, so have caught them doing this and have evidence, but their parents don't seem to care. So I decided to screw all my fence panels in so they could no longer be lifted. Every night I go home, I'm greeted with a bunch of angry kids telling me their ball is in my garden and they can't get it. I just ignore them and throw the ball over without speaking to them. Yesterday when I got home, one of the kids' mothers was at my front door. When I got out of my car, she instantly started yelling and calling me a thief for not getting her son's ball. I told her I was at work and she started yelling about how my partner could have sorted it. I'd go get the ball, so calm down, and she needed to fix my fence as it was broken and the kids couldn't get them on their own anymore. I told her it wasn't broken and I had done it so they couldn't get in. This made her very angry and she started yelling. I told her I couldn't have them letting my dogs out and also mentioned how they broke my fence once, and she threatened to call the police for theft next time I don't get the ball immediately. So, am I the a-hole for stopping them from getting into my garden? And could they actually call the police when I'm not even home to get the ball? I am absolutely grinning. I love petty neighbor drama like this. Not because like OP's going through a shit time, I don't like that, but it just brings me back to my youth, and this sort of stuff really tickles my fancy. In the area we used to live, there was a grass area in sort of like the middle of all the houses, in the middle of all the flats kind of thing, and people on the bottom row all had back gardens. And occasionally, the ball did go into people's gardens. They were low level fences, and most of the time, the person would knock on the window, say, yeah, go and get your ball back or whatever. But along this row of houses, there was one garden. If the ball went in, he would chase you. He was like on a 3-strike warning, like the ball went in once, okay, he chuck it over. 2, he starts getting angry. 3, he threatens to stab the football. And I'm trying to think if anything ever happened about that, a guy coming out wielding a knife. Stabbing a football is odd. We kind of took it in our stride though. Just got another football. Little shits back then, oh my god. It's just another one of those little memories that pops up that just reminds me my youth was fucking weird. But before we go on to that update, JSC says, not the a-hole, you should laugh at the mum and tell her to go ahead and call the police. You'll be very happy to have them stop by to explain the situation. They come out and find that you're being accused of stealing when kids throwing/kicking balls into your yard when you're not home and having to do without them for a few hours. They're going to be very upset with her for wasting their time. Onum says not the a-hole, the word she keeps using, theft. I don't think it means what she thinks it means. It seems she wants you to permit her kids to trespass to retrieve the balls they seem incapable of controlling. This is a learning opportunity for them, but doesn't really have any relevance to you or your partner until such a time as one of you chooses to return them. It may be worth finding a doorbell system that your partner can be aware of in case of genuine emergencies. But this isn't that. Avocados don't bite says not the a-hole. This is the most ridiculous argument I've ever heard from your neighbors. Balls come over our fence all the time. I just toss them back over the fence the next time I'm out in the yard and happen to notice them. The kids are so worried about being deprived of their ball, they'll learn to be a bit more careful before kicking it over your fence. Keeping your dog safe so they can't get loose by accident and making sure you aren't liable for dog bites is the priority here. Not some kid's ball that they shouldn't be kicking into your yard anyway, and can certainly wait a few hours or even a day or two to have it tossed back into theirs. I tell the parents to get them a couple of spares as you are at work all day and can't get to these things immediately. The kids will smarten up and improve their aim. Bia Wu says, and quotes, and she threatened to call the police for theft the next time I don't get the ball immediately. Then says, tell her you will call the police the next time a trespasser is seen in your yard. Make a lot of noise and trouble for this woman. She has this entitled mindset that she deserves to enter your yard for her reason. That's not how private property works. It sounds like she is not the type worth debating because she actually believes this absurd idea. Document and take photos or have video evidence. Eventually the authorities will explain to her in one way or another, where she will soon understand. Not the a-hole. Get it says, not the a-hole. So what happens if the kids go into your garden and one of your dogs bites them, or if they injure themselves on their own? Your insurance company will not like that they can gain access. It was wise to bolster your fence. Put up no trespassing/beware of the dog signs to warn anyone to stay off your property. That should help with any possible insurance claims as well. The parents are responsible for damage to your property. Those dumb kids need to play somewhere else so their balls don't end up in your garden multiple times a day. Holy shit, and talking about that grass area where we used to play football on. It just gave me so many little flashbacks of things that happened on that grass area. And one of them that popped into my head, like I said, everyone had little back gardens with low level like picket fences around their gardens, and they were all joined together until the end of the rows, obviously. And the council didn't really care much what you did in your back garden. But one of the families that I often talk about, there was a massive family where we used to live. And they were pretty much known that you don't mess with them, like to portray themselves as like the big family of the area. But whilst no one messed with them, at the same time, they would always argue amongst themselves and cause trouble amongst themselves. Oh, I keep laughing because I just got this picture in my head. I'll get to it in a second. So one summer's day, we're playing football out the back, like we just explained, as usual. All the kids come together during the summertime and always play football and, bulldog and ball tag and dodgeball, all sorts of games we used to play. Wembley, 1, 2, 3. I'm guessing only British people might understand that, if anyone actually. But this big family who lived on the very sort of end house, so they had the end garden as well, decided that they're going to put up, instead of like the picket fence, they're going to put up full-size fence panels. As far as I was aware, and still aware, that they're not like amazing at DIY or anything like that, but these fence panels were going up. They looked like they're going up pretty quickly. There was a lot of family members there, and I think to celebrate or something, they were doing a barbecue at the same time. And this family enjoyed their drink at the same time. So, it was getting louder and louder as the day was going on. We didn't care. We was playing football. We was having a good time, but you could certainly hear them laughing and joking. A couple of people on the balconies above, looking down and chatting to them and having a laugh as well. Everything's golden. Everything's good. However, I discovered this information like a little bit later about what the argument was about. But an argument broke out in this back garden where they was having the barbecue. The last fence panel went up about like 20 minutes before, and then there was shouting kicking off. Apparently they was arguing about who's paying for the fence panels. One of the family members subsidized it, and they was meant to get paid back once all the fence panels went up and all this kind of thing. But for whatever reason, money wasn't being handed back. A lot of the arguing you couldn't hear, a lot of effing and jeffing going on, But I can always remember one sentence, "You fucking what, mate?" And then bang, some guy come flying through one of the fence panels. Fence panel lands on the ground on the grass. This guy's rolling over. Guy who got Sparta kicked through the fence panel stands up. "You fucking lost your head, mate. You've lost your fucking head." He wandered off. The guy that did Sparta kick him through the fence panel got in his car and wheel span away. And eventually there was some more arguing going on about all this. All over who's paying for the fence panels. And it slowly all calmed down. As with most arguments and fights that went on within the area, police don't get involved. No one generally calls the police. Occasionally a neighbor will call the police if things get too loud or something like that. But mate, this story brought back that memory of him just flying through that fence panel. Oh, I absolutely love it. Anyway, I've totally bloody gone off on one again. I do apologize, and thank you so much for listening to today's stories. If you do want to leave a comment down below, please feel free to do so. I totally appreciate you. Just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in all of today's stories, in the videos, and just Twitter. Everything you do for me is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Sparta!